Do you have the capacity to imagine how to rebuild an entire nation of hundreds of thousands, potentially even millions of human beings? Well, in this episode, Britnie Faith Turner will be giving her and hopefully some future world leaders the ingredients needed to rebuild a nation after a wipeout. In true broke to woke fashion, my friends and family, you gorgeous listeners out there and viewers, if you're out there on YouTube, what we just did is a little bit of a shift in the episode regiment. I asked Britnie a question about rebuilding nations. Now, keep in mind, a decade ago, she was in her Mustang, sleeping there, seat back.
Grocery store parking lot.
Grocery store parking lots.
Like a queen.
Yeah, taking the gas hose and squeezing it for a little bit more gas so she could drive an extra 500 feet and pay a little bit less for it. To now, she's working with nations. That's right, the things that you need a passport to get into. Nations to help rebuild them when they get wiped out by some horrific incident. And I'm here in front of this woman, and I'm going to ask her these questions. The questions of, what do you do as a business owner of a business that actually goes in and helps achieve this mission? What are some steps?
What's crazy is my original intent was to be a missionary, and then it was to eliminate poverty and human trafficking at its root. And then it was to flip houses to make money, and then I learned that you can actually develop nations and wipe out poverty at their root through strategic real estate development tips and kind of the approach in which we would revitalize streets and cities. We can do it in countries. And so my journey, again, is probably the weirdest one ever because it's always been about learning, not just about being the best developer in the world or being the biggest developer in the world. Once I would start learning everything I need to know in that asset class, I'd kind of move on so that I could get to countries. And even island nations right now are getting me to African nations that need help. So like I said before, if it's been done before, it can be done again. So what are those common denominators that have made areas become incredibly valuable, or places people want to live, people want to work, people want to vacation, people want to invest? And so step one, doesn't matter where you go in the world, something is working. And the news typically is selling stories about the bad. Why? Because whatever, fear-mongering, that's what people want. That's why they sell it to them. So as soon as we stop demanding that, they'll shift. But until then, they'll go into a neighborhood, let's say in America, and say, shooting happened, da-da-da-da, another gang, another this, another that. And if that's all people hear about for a specific area, then no one will want to live there. You Google the area, not safe. I don't really feel like dying, so I'm going to try to cut back on that area. So when we go into a neighborhood, we find the good first thing, and we talk about that. And I've learned that I can change the physical landscape all I want through real estate development, but if the story online doesn't change, and no one will ever have the faith to believe in it. Now, again, this concept I'm going to explain today came from developing an orphanage in Africa in the most desperate area of Kenya, where parents were selling their kids. So if they're selling your kids because they're so desperate, how do you fix the desperation? Well, you do it through jobs. You do it through education. And it's not just like it's fixed because people have more book knowledge. It's the education of how things work together, everything we've been covering in this season so far, and showing them how to even create opportunities and businesses and teaching them the basics to and more advanced things. So again, I've been practicing in my own backyard. How do you shift the story in real life? How do you shift the story online? How do you expand what people should know about the area? What kind of access to the park, to downtown, to the river, to each other, to the farmer's market, like all the cool things, like start talking about it. So I started a media production company literally just to tell good stories.
Right. Yep.
To make websites, to create logos, to do signs, and then cleaning up the physical landscape. So number 1 is to find the good. Number 2 is to focus on it and talk about it. Get people to understand it's not just a bad neighborhood. It's not just poverty. It's not just, all the crime that's happening there. That's once every however often, but people are loving living here. They can walk down this street. There's other good things happening. And then you've got to share with others why this area is worth believing in, investing in, and vacationing in. So I now own Aerial Recovery Group, which is hand-holding nations through all 5 phases of recovery. So resiliency to emergency relief to recovery, innovative redevelopment, all the different pieces. And we're doing that kind of like a real estate developer.
In a way, yeah.
So when you go to develop a big piece of property, the developer is really just the coordinator of everything. So they find the piece of land, they buy it, they get the money lined up, they design it, but they'll work with an architect to lay it out, a civil engineer, and then they come in, do their thing. Then you get the demo guys to clean out the area. Then the road people come in, and then you put in the water lines and the electrical and all these things. Stay with me, people. Then you start putting the houses and making sure they go vertical, and then you make sure that they're beautiful and finished. There's a sales plan, they're sold, and the HOA abides by the values and the vision of the developer.
Right.
So
Okay.
how do we do that same thing with nations? So let's say you get wiped out. You need everything.
Yeah.
You need cleanup crew.
Yep.
You need food, water. You need to rebuild your cisterns. You need to rebuild your museums. Your schools are gone. You need electricity. You need all the things that you're trying to build a nation overnight that just lost it all. So how do you do that? Well, the poor government is personally affected most of the time because they've lost a family member or they lost their home. They're stressed out. They're shocked. They're not necessarily trained. It's the first time this ever happened to them. So it's really hard to think that they can handle everything that runs a normal country plus all the extra of rebuilding an entire country overnight. So it's not even logical. And everybody gets so mad at the government. A lot of times they're trying their best or don't have the physical ability to do it. So we come alongside governments and help them through it. So we get their vision and we actually walk them through, now that you've lost everything, what do you wish you had before?
Sure.
Is it solar powered power instead of these power lines?
Yep.
Is it better education systems? Is it rebuilding houses stronger now that we know these category 5s and beyond are affecting you?
Right.
What can we do when we come back to be stronger? And so we walk alongside them with that vision in the beginning and then help them through all the different pieces. So again, it's getting that master plan and then telling people how they can help. How many times on TV have you seen a massive disaster affects Bahamas and you see these people suffering and they're crying out and you want to do something, right?
Yeah, absolutely. All the time.
Have you ever known what to do?
No.
Isn't it suck?
Yeah.
You've got an amazing person, multimillionaire with tons of resources, a huge network, a voice online.
Yep.
Rendered ineffective.
Yeah. And there's other people like me. There has to be, right?
Tons.
Tons
of them.
tons and tons.
Yes. And I learned this my first time I went to Haiti. I saw how every 5 minutes the neon green shirts would land. This herd of Americans or wherever they're from coming in and it said, "Save Haiti, save Haiti." And they were doing all this work and they would stay for 4 days and they'd do the same thing. You see a starving kid, you're going to do what they do.
Absolutely.
You have to feed the kid.
Yeah.
What are you going to do? I'm sorry, we need to plant some trees. You guys are short on trees, so we're going to do that. Sorry, kid. No, you have to feed and fix the emergency. But what I saw was that so many people want to help. There's way more than enough need out there. But there's way more than enough resource out there.
Sure.
And it's not about creating handouts, but how can we, instead of creating a nation that's dependent fully on NGOs feeding them every single day,
Right.
like the ultimate welfare system,
Right.
because you can't even start a business over there because they're giving away shirts every day. Like, even if you did try, you can't compete with free. So we've got this entire handout system created where a nation can't stand on its own, but these people have good hearts. All right, so it takes a master plan saying, all right, we need trees, we need education, we need clean water, we need better medical systems, we need it all. How can everybody who's coming in move the ball forward? So it takes clarity. So everybody's understanding what the needs are. Then they understand how they can get involved and exactly what their part is. And they've got the clarity in order to move forward. So you're letting each group do their part to move that nation forward. But there's one central thread. There's one central vision that everybody has to create and move around.
Okay.
And that's the filter of the leaders, which should come from the people.
Right.
On who we want to be when we grow up. So the same things that we've talked about with you guys this entire time, you can do for a nation.
No way.
Who do you want to be when you grow up? Where do you want this country to be in 50 years?
Oh my gosh. That's the mind explosion.
What's the eulogy of the country? Where do you want to be in 20 years? Where do you want to be in 5 years? In all these different sectors. What do we have to do today? Who else do we need to engage in order to bring this to life? Because so many people want to help.
Sure.
Don't ever believe they don't. Just show them how to get involved. So there we go.
And what do we need to stop doing, right? Immediately.
What do we have to stop doing?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That's so wild. It can be the tiny little adjustments, because I remember when we were driving around at one point in the island of Tortola, and you're like, look at this. You could easily fix that up, right? Pull that out, redo that fence, repaint this, and this whole block would be so much better immediately. And that property value would go up, that property value up. That business owner would probably do the same thing with their business. Like this tiny little vacant lot that just a simple, easy, quick fix would boost it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so when you were working with BVI Stronger, what were some of the things that you specifically went in and did initially?
And first thing we did was get emergency supplies in, food and water, and evacuations out.
Okay.
So a lot of people had strokes, heart attacks, all kind of stuff, and the hospitals, first of all, damaged, secondly, overrun.
Yeah.
So you got to get the help out, you got to get the medical aid in, you got to get people the basics. Then you start working on roofing, after the human can live, then you work on their structure. And once you at least stabilize that at all, then you start getting services online. One of the coolest things we do is, again, connecting the country to other countries who want to help, even if it's just funding. We help organize the NGOs so that when they come in, instead of them doing 3 weeks of recon missions trying to figure out what they should do, they've got their mission handed to them. Here's where you go.
Yeah.
Here's where you can be most effective. Here's where you can sleep.
Yeah.
Go ahead and go. Run.
Killer.
Run like the wind. Also, if we have somebody who wants to fund water supply, we're going to direct them to them. So they're getting the money, they're getting the resources, and they're getting the information to be highly effective.
Immediately. And
but these NGOs can get hundreds of millions of dollars, but come in and not have any direction and then get pulled out to the next one.
Sure.
No. These countries need anybody, even America, needs a hand up when you get slapped down by one of these Category 4, Category 5 disasters or floods or earthquakes. Everybody needs help. And if you're not stewarding what people are sending in well, like, shame on you.
Right.
But if it's your first time dealing with it, but that's what we are. It's not the first hurricane to hit somewhere. It's not the first earthquake. It's not the first time. So my goal, even in this, because I'm always scaling, is once I've mastered how to get a country that would normally take 20 to 50 years to recover and get it down to 2 years or less, then we're going to add the disaster of war, the disaster of poverty, the disaster of other things, because the common denominators are the same.
Right.
The checklist is the same. Have a master vision. Back into everything, where it belongs, when we work on it, when we focus on it, whose job is it, and how do we work together to get it done.
And I bet you would probably love like a central location to have world leaders meet at, so you can all develop this ahead of time.
Absolutely. I think we're going to talk about that in season 3.
Oh, yeah?
Oh, yeah.
Are we?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I know we are. But yes, that would be incredible, because to have that and to be able to facilitate it now and have these open discussions and have people come together and go, okay, we know this is coming, right? Because to just take a step back, we don't want to sound morbid or pessimistic or negative when we're talking about wipeouts, and we're discussing it a lot. But guess what? Just like all of this applies to individuals, aka you, beautiful human beings listening or watching this, it also applies to nations,
Absolutely.
countries, companies.
It's called resiliency planning.
Yeah, resiliency
You
planning.
know a disaster is coming.
It's coming.
The disaster could be COVID.
The wipeout is coming.
Could be a snowstorm.
Yes.
It could be, it could be horrible, horrible things. I mean, technology could get wiped out, guys.
Yes.
It could be done.
Yeah.
What is life like? Do you have any real skills?
Right.
You are currently one Google away from being trained. What if you don't have Google?
Sure. If you don't have Google, there's books.
Right.
If you don't have access to books, there's someone out there who you could still ask that might not know the exact right answer, but they could probably lead you to someone who does know the right answer.
Right.
Or they
Surround
could,
yourself with the people who do.
precisely.
Now, am I afraid? Am I telling you to be one of those people who build a bunker and have a bunch of books in there that you may not be able to buy and all these supplies? Saying maybe it's not bad to have one of those, but I'm
right.
saying the resiliency planning that we do plans on how we respond quickly so that we can get back online quicker, just like last episode we just talked about, as a person, as a nation. But not only do we get back online quicker, how can we be stronger when we come back? If we lose everything, how can we use it as a blank slate to recreate the country we really want to be?
Right.
Ask yourself that. If I just lost everything, who do I want to come back as? Because now I have a good excuse for why I changed.
Right. Here's a question I've never asked you before. These developing nations, are they only island nations?
No.
Why not?
It's not. I mean, it's anywhere that the bar could be raised. So you could be doing this in your own backyard, no matter where you live. How can I be elevating my area, my community? So start with you as a person.
Sure.
Not in the spirit of constantly getting therapy because you need so much help and you have to be perfect. But how can I at least stabilize myself so that I can be a force for good for others? What do I have? Do I have money? Maybe. Cool. Do I have a car? Do I have the writing ability? What is your thing that you can start sharing to make anything around you a little better? Start with you, your family, your community, your city, your nation, other nations, but also understand where you're called because you're going to have an extra grace on that as well.
And if you're listening to this and you're thinking, wow, this is deep for me. This is heavy. Well, that's because we want you to hopefully be a world leader one day.
Yeah.
We want you to work with us 5, 15, 20 years into the future because you listened to this episode and thought, what if I could be? What if I have that capability? What if I have that capacity? What if I know someone who needs to listen to this? You could send this episode and going, hey, world leader, person I know, politician, person in power, listen to this episode, just this one of Broke to Woke, because it could give you insight. It could give you a glimmer of not only hope, but a plan of action that you can take, that we can take together so that we can hopefully, specifically, prevent years. I mean,
Of waste and pain.
years of waste and pain. And those are words that we have now captured and put out on the internet forever, Britnie. So thank you. That's huge. I hope you know how huge this episode is going to be. I do.
Thanks for asking me about it. I'm excited, and when you can work with countries and or places that just got completely wiped out, whether or not a ton of people died. I work in one nation where 5 people died, but 500 people killed themselves in the following 90 days because they lost that hope. We're not just rebuilding economically, we're rebuilding the human spirit. And if you've never gone through a disaster where you've lost everything, serve someone who has and ask them what matters most in that moment. It's so crazy to get to do these interviews. And you just have perspective, which is what we keep talking about.
Yeah. Perspective is a superpower. I love it. And on that path to doing all that, you are working with people and you are being surrounded by the people that are helping you, your team, right? You are developing relationships on your team and with your team and the people that you're surrounding yourself with so that you can become greater, you can have them become greater, and you can all become greater together. So that's what we're going to focus on coming up, is we're going to be talking about how we can develop those relationships, how we build up our team, how we create leaders, and how we create future world changers and world leaders.
More great, good-hearted, pure, amazing, incredible people have got to be stabilized and have got to be forces for good at the top of all these different mountains. That's what we need. Step up. Step up. Good people. Let's go.
We'll see you there.
If you keep hearing us talking about these impact trips where we're going and changing lives, delivering disaster response, we're helping to end human trafficking, we're building out these financial education programs to help people locally and globally be able to build themselves up, pull themselves up with dignity, and stand on their own 2 feet and be able to provide for themselves and their family. If you want to get involved in our Give Back initiatives, go to broketowoke.com and pick which one aligns best with you.